Holo promised so much and delivered so little when it originally released back on the Nintendo Switch a few years ago. It's since seen price drops every single day and also featured heavily on my what to avoid list during our sales series. For those like me itching for a Dead Space trilogy on Switch, we initially flocked to Holo, gasping for oxygen in the roguelike wastes of space, keen for some narrative survival horror, but it ended up being horrific for all the wrong reasons. And having spent a few precious hours of my Christmas holiday playing Holo 2, and with the game taking quite a different approach, have developer hmmm done enough to embarrass Mass Effect Andromeda and bring much shame to Dead Space 3, or is this one still lost in space? Well, let's find out. In the first game, you woke up on a poor man's Nostromo, aka Shakhtar 1, no affiliation with William, and then had to move deck to deck from a ship, trying to figure out what had happened. This time around you play as Mark. Yeah. As he wakes up aboard the Shakhtar 1, with the exposition taking place inside his own head, but being delivered by what sounds like his annoying ex-wife.
No, really. I mean it. Not bad.
Her interjections come far too frequently, and her delivery of the character is like something out of Desperate Housewives. It feels incredibly at odds with the science fiction setting, and I'm almost certain Ripley would find a new use for that flamethrower.
You're not so mad at me, are you?
As far as gameplay and controls go, generic doesn't even come close. To summarize the game in a single sentence, move into a space, kill all of the enemies, move on to the next space. While intrinsically that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Games like Doom have done this for many years. Unfortunately for Holo though, its core mechanics simply cannot facilitate that kind of play. The action takes place from a first-person perspective. Starting out with a ripped-off mining laser, you'll discover that each gun has a secondary fire mode. Some of them are sensible enough, however a couple are very badly implemented, like one weapon that can fire mines, but you can barely see them when launched. And then there are the enemies. There's a stark contrast here when you look at something like Dead Space, with different enemies requiring certain body parts to be shot, and in turn specific weapons being more effective. With Holo 2, the enemy variety is very lackluster. The animations that accompany them is atrocious. They simply track you like moths to a flame, except those moths have wall hack. They'll see you wherever you go, but rather than shooting off individual body parts, it doesn't matter where you shoot them, you can't really tell if you're doing any damage, and they'll take a brief dirt nap before completely disintegrating and disappearing like back in the old mobile days. There's a Directional HUD which is intended to allow the player to see which direction enemies are coming from, but this also seems to have been given the care and attention of Bishop's Underpants, aka not a great deal. An enemy in front of you might show up on the left side of the HUD. It may indicate there's one above you, only to find out they're directly behind you. What you end up with is simply a cluttered mess. In its defense though, the combat is so simplistic, you'll spend most of your time just running backwards and shooting enemies, and not paying a great deal of attention to that. Not heaping praise when your defense is actually bad game design, but there we are. There are a few boss fights within the experience, but they tend to just drop sporadically. Suddenly there'll be a tougher enemy. He won't have any new particular moves, perhaps a giant shield, and also won't prove to be any more of a challenge. Simply running backwards and firing into his toe will eventually put him down. You don't know that because there's no indication he's being hit or hurt, especially with that extra large shield, but hey ho, it's par for the course by now. As you move from room to room to room, you'll begin to notice quite a good amount of asset recycling. That's where you see not only the same items, you'll also see the exact same corridor segments. These are loosely veiled load screens within which you can usually access a terminal to upgrade your gear. What upgrades are there, you ask? Well, there's a weapon upgrade you can buy. What do you mean, what does it do? Nobody knows that. It just says weapon upgrade. You buy it and it upgrades your weapon. Apparently. From here you can also purchase ammunition, and you can buy two different types of med pack. One will heal you instantly, and the other one I think you can use out on the field, but it doesn't tell you how to do that, and I couldn't get it to work. While predominantly linear, there is the chance that you may find yourself getting lost and ripped straight from someone else's playbook. You can click a stick in, and a visual path indicative of where you need to go next is shown on the floor. Where have I seen that before? Objectives are shown on the left of the screen, and if you can grit your teeth through the exposition, you'll understand why you're doing them, but they will always involve move here, shoot everything in the room, flick a switch. Gyroscopic controls, you ask? Absolutely not. Imprecise aiming and some degree of auto lock-on are the order of the day. It's no exaggeration for me to say that Hollow 2 is simply mediocrity personified. It's taking several aspects of franchises we all know and love, tossing them haphazardly into a blender, and then blitzing them into oblivion. It's neither fun, clever, or particularly exciting, and as far as horror goes, forget it. The enemy designs, animations, movements, the feeling of disconnect between yourself and the environments, and the often juddery movement leave you feeling quite literally unwell. Overall, gameplay scores 3 out of 20, and the controls, which don't allow you to even remap the XY axis and simply have a sensitivity toggle, leave much to be desired. They score 5 out of 20. Onto visuals, performance and audio then. The strongest visual aspect of Hollow 2 are some of the environments. Unfortunately though, as mentioned, there's so much asset recycling, they very quickly lose impact after you've seen the same ones repeated multiple times. The enemies and animations are poor. Now there are a few stuttery issues with frame pacing, and this can have a very detrimental effect on your experience, causing some nausea, but frame rates tend to be around 30 frames per second, and in docked mode it's actually okay. Survival horror and space lends itself to atmospheric audio, and most of the time in Hollow 2, I simply felt like I was being told off by my wife.
Don't you even care about how much effort and work that I put into this?
It didn't help that he quite literally has my name, and Hollow 2 ended up feeling more like a personal attack than a fun time. Everything from texture quality to visual appearance just leaves a bad impression on the player, with frame pacing inconsistencies combined with the poor control options really do leave it a bit of a mess. Overall, visuals and performance score 7 out of 20, and the audio scores 12 out of 20. This experience will set you back £17.99. Although it currently has a 10% discount until the 12th of January, I'd strongly recommend you never take part in that offer. It has a download size of just over 3 gigs, and no, you cannot buy it physically. I don't hate the ideas behind Hollow 2, but the execution leaves so much to be desired. As far as value goes, had it been half this price, I'd still be complaining it was perhaps a touch too high. Value scores 7 out of 20.
Hello, my dear husband. How you been?
Hollow 2 takes any good aspects from the first game, such as a slower pace and a few more puzzles, and rips them out, replacing them instead with mediocre first-person shooting. Overall, it gets a very disappointing SwitchUp score of 34%. Happy New Year to all of you. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this one, and will you be picking it up? Thanks to our patrons. We've had a few new ones again over the new year. Amazing. If you want to join them or check out our free Discord, all the links are down in the description. It's always nice when I say that because suddenly there's a huge influx of people. We've got over 2,000 people on the SwitchUp family Discord, and it's proved to be a really good place for people to make friends, to find new Switch games, and also a bit of a retreat when things get a bit tough. All that's left to say is, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it SwitchUp. Cheers, guys. See ya!